Most people remember the 2016 NBA season by Kyrie's shot, or by LeBron's block, and Kevin Love's stop, which brought Cleveland its first title after 52 years. However, the 2016 season is one of the best years in NBA history for several different reasons. We saw the greatest regular season team of all time, the best shooting season ever, which resulted in the first ever unanimous MVP, the greatest farewell game in sports history, as well as the final games of 3 other first-ballot Hall of Famers. The NBA's most legendary sideline reporter gave us his last interview, and arguably the best speech in ESPY's history.
I will live my life full of love and full of fun. It's the only way I know how.
Together with some of the most memorable shots of the decade, probably the best dunk contest ever, and controversial moments that are still talked about today, the 2016 season had it all. This is the full recap of the 2016 NBA season, arguably the greatest season of all time. After the Warriors won the 2015 title, the NBA had a busy offseason. Tom Thibodeau was fired as the head coach of the Chicago Bulls after 5 years, being replaced by Fred Hoiberg, who would become disliked by all the Bulls players. OKC fired Scott Brooks after 7 years, replacing him with Billy Donovan, while the Nuggets hired Michael Malone, who would become the most successful coach in franchise history. Unfortunately, the Timberwolves had to change their head coach too, after Flip Saunders passed away, and in his place came the Timberwolves' former player, Sam Mitchell. The Spurs signed the best free agent that offseason, LaMarcus Aldridge. Goran Dragic signed with the Heat, while Jeremy Lin became a Hornet after a disastrous year with the Lakers. And despite verbally agreeing to sign a 4-year, $80 million contract with the Dallas Mavericks on July 3rd, on the very next day, DeAndre Jordan was literally hijacked by the Clippers players, who convinced him to change his mind and re-sign with the Clippers.
So I got to talk to my guy, man. So I answered him, like, yo, what up, Doc? He was like, yo, man, took me a couple days to process. And he was like, yeah, man, but, I think we still could get it done here. And I'm like, I already told these people I'm coming. I can't tell them I'm not going. And he goes, well, if you did, we had your back.
Minnesota selected Karl Anthony Towns with the first overall pick in the draft.
With the first pick in the 2015 NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Karl Anthony Towns from the University of Kentucky,
thus becoming the first ever franchise with 3 of the most recent first picks on their roster, since they also had Andrew Wiggins and Anthony Bennett, who arrived in Minneapolis in a trade for Kevin Love. However, that would be short-lived, since Bennett was cut before the season even started, thus becoming the first number 1 pick to get cut after only 2 years in the league. The Lakers selected D'Angelo Russell with the second pick.
With the second pick in the 2015 NBA draft, the Los Angeles Lakers select D'Angelo Russell from The Ohio State University,
whose rookie season wouldn't be remembered by anything he did on the court, but by the scandal involving Nick Young, when D'Angelo leaked footage where Young talked about his infidelities while engaged to rapper Iggy Azalea.
You was 30, she was 19?
Those legs for days, so now
Because of that leaked recording, Young split up with Iggy, while Russell got ostracized by his teammates, who wouldn't speak with him after the scandal, while the entire NBA started calling him D'Angelo Ratzel. Kristaps Porzingis got drafted 4th by the Knicks, even though some fans clearly didn't think it was a good idea.
What the f*** did they do? Who the f*** is this? Who the f*** is Tingus Pingus? I never heard of Lativia.
Other notable draft picks include Devin Booker, who got selected 7th overall by the Suns, Miles Turner, and Bobby Portis, in what was a relatively weak draft class overall. And even though he was drafted in 2014, famously getting selected during a Taco Bell commercial, the 2016 season was also the first NBA season for a future 3-time MVP, Nikola Jokic. In the second game of the season, OKC and Orlando played one of the most thrilling games of the year, which was decided in 2 overtimes, filled with crazy clutch shots. On November 1st, the San Antonio Spurs trio, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili, achieved their 541st regular season win, surpassing the all-time mark attained by Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, and Kevin McHale with the Boston Celtics between 81 and 92. The very next day, LeBron James surpassed Kobe Bryant to become the youngest player to score 25,000 career points at 30 years and 307 days in a victory against the 76ers. That same night, Tim Duncan achieved his 954th victory with the San Antonio Spurs in a 94-84 win against the New York Knicks, thus becoming the player with the most wins with a single team. And mere weeks after the regular season began, we had the first scandal, when Blake Griffin punched the Clippers equipment manager Matthias Testi in the face. Griffin suffered a fracture in his right hand and was later suspended for 4 games by the team. When Griffin returned to action, he was greeted by Kevin Garnett, who threw one of the nastiest dunks of his career in Blake's face at the age of 39.
Patient, got to beat Blake. He's got KG trailing the play. Kevin Garnett.
On November 18th, the Rockets fired coach Kevin McHale after he had a disagreement with the team's superstar James Harden. 6 days later, the Golden State Warriors set the NBA record for the longest winning streak to start the regular season, with a 16-0 record following a win against the Los Angeles Lakers. The Warriors would eventually extend their record to 24-0 before getting their first loss against the Bucks on December 12, 2015. Thus setting the second longest winning streak ever at 28 games, which included their 4-game win streak at the end of the previous year. On the other hand, the Philadelphia 76ers became the first team in league history to start out multiple seasons in a row with 0-17 records. They also ended up breaking the NBA record for longest losing streak with their 28 straight losses, and tied the 2010 New Jersey Nets for the worst start to a season in league history. But even though some great names like Sean Marion, Andrei Kirilenko, Kenyon Martin, Steven Jackson, Jason Richardson, and Hedo Turkoglu announced their retirements before the season even began, one active player decided to announce his retirement in the middle of the season, which overshadowed everything and became a league-wide appreciation tour. Kobe's Dear Basketball, a poem he wrote to announce his love for the sport and the decision to step away from the game, won him an Oscar 2 years later. And even though Kobe was clearly struggling with injuries, on January 7, 2016, Bryant scored his 33,000th career point in a loss to the Kings, joining Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Karl Malone as the only players with over 33,000 points. Several weeks later, the Cavaliers fired their head coach, David Blatt, despite having the best record in the East. But Blatt had lost the locker room, not able to deal with many superstars on the roster. In his place came Tyronn Lue, getting his first head coaching job. Steve Kerr returned to the Warriors bench after complications following back surgery, taking over from assistant Luke Walton, who led the Warriors to a 39-4 record. And despite getting called Tingus Pingus, Kristaps Porzingis proved to be a great asset for the struggling Knicks, winning the East Rookie of the Month award for the first 3 months of the season, while Towns did the same in the Western Conference. Porzingis would become the first player in NBA history to record more than 1,000 points, at least 500 rebounds, 75 three-pointers, and block more than 100 shots in his rookie season. Because of his versatility, he received a nickname from Kevin Durant, which would later become a mainstream term for many other players with similar skill sets: unicorn.
Yeah, I'm taking full credit for that one. I seen someone else use it.
And after Matt Barnes beat up the New York Knicks head coach and former teammate Derek Fisher for dating his ex-wife, when asked about the incident, Barnes delivered one of the best quotes of the year, saying that violence is never the answer, but sometimes it is. Unrelated to the fight, Fisher got fired from the Knicks in the next couple of weeks, as the team was underperforming, wasting another year of Carmelo Anthony's prime. Miami's Chris Bosh was diagnosed with blood clots, and even though nobody knew it then, a game against the Spurs on February 9th would be the last time he ever played in the NBA. A few days later, the All-Star Weekend began, and it was one of the best All-Star events ever. Kevin Hart had a three-point shooting contest with Draymond Green, and the comedian almost defeated the NBA champion with a shootout ending in a tie.
What's the score? He got it. He got it. Yeah, he got it. Yeah. He got it. He got it.
But in a real three-point contest, Klay Thompson defeated his splash brother Steph Curry in one of the best three-point shooting contests ever.
This is his best shot, and he can't slow down. His money ball. Slow down.
However, the most memorable moments happened during the slam dunk contest. After the dunk contest had been less than thrilling for years, Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon put on a show that's arguably even better than the 1988 contest between Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins. Dunk after dunk, LaVine and Gordon amazed the crowd with insane aerial feats, scoring 50s multiple times in a row. In the end, LaVine became the first back-to-back slam dunk contest winner since Nate Robinson, edging out Gordon with 4 consecutive perfect scores in the final round. The All-Star Game itself was the celebration of Kobe Bryant's career, who appeared in his 18th and final All-Star Game. Kobe finished with 10 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists, while Russell Westbrook won the MVP with 31 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 steals in 22 minutes as the West defeated the East 196-173. The 369 total points in the game broke the previous year's record by 48, and both sides exceeded the prior team record of 163. Boston's Isaiah Thomas, who was the 60th pick in the 2011 draft, became the lowest draft pick to be named an All-Star since the NBA draft was reduced to 2 rounds in 1989. Thomas also became only the 9th player under 6 feet to be named an All-Star, while also tying Calvin Murphy as the shortest player to be selected for the All-Star game. The All-Star weekend also became memorable for the recognition of Craig Sager, a legendary TNT sideline reporter who returned to his job despite a long battle with cancer.
Just trying to see him just trying to dunk on me. He gonna lay it up at the end. He's just trying to dunk on me, Craig. Oh, no. He's just trying to dunk on me.
And soon after the regular season resumed, we saw the best game of the season between the Golden State Warriors and the OKC Thunder. In an emotion-filled game that felt like Game 7 of the playoffs, after 48 minutes, the score was tied. It seemed like it would also be tied after the first overtime, when Steph Curry crossed half court with only a few seconds remaining. And what happened next was legendary, and to this day remains arguably the most memorable three-pointer of Curry's career.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
During the game, Curry made his 287th three-pointer of the season, breaking his own NBA record of most three-pointers in a single season, 286, from the previous year. Steph made 12 total three-pointers during the game, tying Kobe Bryant and Donyell Marshall for the most three-pointers made in a single game in NBA history. This also made Curry the first player in NBA history to make at least 10 three-pointers in 2 consecutive games. On March 3rd, DeMar DeRozan set an NBA record for most consecutive free throws made during the Toronto Raptors win against the Portland Trail Blazers. And 3 days later, the Los Angeles Lakers recorded the biggest regular season upset in NBA history, with a blowout 112-95 victory over the Golden State Warriors. It was the first time in NBA history that a team with a winning percentage below 200 had ever defeated a team with a winning percentage above 900 so late in the regular season. On March 25th, the Golden State Warriors and Dallas Mavericks scored a combined 39 three-pointers, breaking the previous NBA record of most combined threes between two teams in a single game that had been set by the Golden State Warriors and Portland Trail Blazers only 14 days earlier. It was a great precursor of what the league would become in the following decade, as the pace and space era truly took over. In 2016, the league average for three-point attempts was 24.1 three-point shots per game, which was then a new NBA record, while in 2025, teams averaged 37.6 attempts from deep, with no team averaging less than 32 threes per game. But toward the end of the regular season, several more NBA records were broken. On April 5th, with a Spurs victory over the Jazz, Tim Duncan joined Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Robert Parrish as only one of 3 players in NBA history to amass at least 1,000 career regular season wins. Duncan also became the first, and so far only, player to record 1,000 regular season victories with a single team. And 2 days later, the matchup between Duncan's Spurs and the Golden State Warriors marked the first game in NBA history between two teams with at least 65 wins each. The Warriors entered the game with 69 wins, while the Spurs entered the game with 65 wins, and the 134 combined wins set a record for the most combined wins between two teams in a regular season matchup in NBA history. The Spurs finished the year with 67 wins, including a 40-1 record at home, which tied the NBA record previously held by the 1986 Boston Celtics. However, despite the Spurs' historic year, the main story was whether the Warriors would break the record for most wins in a season, which was set in 1996 by the Chicago Bulls, who went 72-10. Even though chasing the record tired him out and was somewhat unnecessary since the Warriors clinched the #1 seed a few weeks before the playoffs started, they decided to go for it, and all their main players played in every game towards the end of the season to clinch the record. On April 13th, with a victory against the Grizzlies, Golden State won their 73rd game of the season, thus breaking the Bulls' record. In that final game, Steph Curry made 10 three-pointers, which put his total for the season at 402 made threes. Steph absolutely trashed his previous NBA record of 286 three-pointers in a season, becoming the first player to score 300 and then 400 threes in a season. His Warriors also became the first team ever that didn't lose back-to-back regular season games, as well as the first team in NBA history that didn't lose to the same opponent twice in the regular season. However, despite their historic feat, one player stole the spotlight from the Warriors.
Kobe, they're doing a big celebration for you the last game. A lot of us are going to be there. Can you promise me one thing?
What's up?
I need 50 that night. Can you do it? Your last home game at the Staples, can you give us 50?
In true Mamba fashion, Kobe erupted for 60 points in his final NBA game, providing a perfect ending for his storied career. Bryant became the oldest player ever to score 60 points in a game and set the record for most points scored by a player in their final career game. Kobe shot a career-high 50 field goal attempts and 21 three-point attempts in the game, after which he dropped the mic.
What can I say? Mamba out.
On the negative side of NBA history, James Harden broke the all-time record for most turnovers in a season, 374, a record that he would increase the following season, turning the ball over 464 times. The Philadelphia 76ers became the sixth team to lose 70 games in a season, and the first team in NBA history to lose at least 70 regular season games in two separate seasons. The 76ers would finish 10-72, one win ahead of their own worst 82-game record set in the 72-73 season. And despite the Sixers embracing the trust the process mantra of their general manager Sam Hinkie, the GM wouldn't be there to reap the benefits. Hinkie got fired during the last week of the season, even though the Sixers would end up with the number one pick in the draft a month later in the draft lottery, thus proving his losing efforts somewhat acceptable. Apart from leading the league in three-pointers, Curry also led the NBA in scoring, with 30.1 points per game, in steals with 2.1, and in free throw percentage, with 91% accuracy. Steph joined the prestigious 50-40-90 club, becoming just the seventh player with that accomplishment, and the only one who scored over 30 points per game with that efficiency. Because of those historic feats, Steph became the first unanimous MVP in NBA history. Unsurprisingly, Steve Kerr also won Coach of the Year, despite missing more than half of the season due to back surgery. Kawhi Leonard won the Defensive Player of the Year award after being recognized as the best perimeter defender in the league since 2013. Karl Anthony Towns became just the fifth player ever to win Rookie of the Year unanimously, after averaging 18.3 points, 10.5 rebounds, and 1.7 blocks per game, with elite shooting percentages. Porzingis finished second, while Jokic came in third, already displaying some of his passing wizardry as a rookie. Jamal Crawford won the Sixth Man of the Year award for the third time, while CJ McCollum became the most improved player. The 2016 season was also the coming-out party for Giannis Antetokounmpo, who led the league in total dunks and announced his future rim-shattering dominance. The biggest positive surprise was the Boston Celtics, who secured the fifth seed in the East just 2 years after they went into a rebuild by trading Pierce and KG to the Nets. On the other hand, the Knicks were a disaster, while the Bulls missed the playoffs because coach Fred Hoiberg never could get on the same page with Jimmy Butler and their other two stars, Pau Gasol and Derrick Rose. In the West, the Rockets underachieved due to James Harden's beef with Dwight Howard. The Pelicans were an abomination despite the greatness of Anthony Davis, but the worst of all was the Lakers, who won just 17 games, playing the worst season in franchise history. However, the team that really exceeded expectations was the Portland Trail Blazers, who lost 4 starters from the previous season. But thanks mainly to Damian Lillard, who became a true superstar, averaging 25 points per game, including 2 50-point games, the Blazers kept on winning, finishing the season as the 5th seed. And when the playoffs started, Lillard, McCollum, and their Blazers knocked off the favored LA Clippers, largely due to injuries to Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, which marked the beginning of the end for the Lob City Clippers. This was the only surprise in the West, as the Warriors, Spurs, and Thunder lost a combined 2 games in their first-round matchups. However, the amount of wear and tear from the regular season caught up with Curry, who got hurt in Game 2 of the series against the Rockets.
Falls down and grabs his right leg. Curry asking for help to get up.
And would miss the first 3 games of the second-round matchup against the Blazers. In the first round of the Eastern Conference, there weren't any surprises either, as all 4 higher seeds defeated the lower ones. The Cavaliers easily swept the Pistons, the Raptors won their first Game 7 in franchise history against the Pacers, the Hawks defeated Isaiah Thomas and the Celtics, while Miami got past the Hornets, in a series that will be remembered by Dwayne Wade's clash with a fan in a purple shirt. The most interesting series in the second round was the clash between the Spurs and the Thunder, where Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant edged out San Antonio's 2 superstars, LaMarcus Aldridge and Kawhi Leonard. The 6th and final game of the series, which the Thunder won 113-99, was the last career game of the great Tim Duncan. Timmy didn't disappoint, scoring 19 points and 5 rebounds in his farewell game. With Duncan out of the playoffs, he joined Kobe, Kevin Garnett, and Chris Bosh, who all retired that season, and would all become part of the legendary 2020 Hall of Fame class. In the second matchup in the West, the Blazers had a golden opportunity to advance, since the Warriors played without Curry. But the Warriors took a 2-1 lead without their best player, and when Steph returned to play after missing 2 weeks due to an MCL sprain, he scored 40 points to lead the Warriors to a 132-125 overtime win. Curry scored 17 of his 40 points during the overtime period, setting an NBA record for most points ever scored by a single player in overtime of any NBA regular season or postseason game. In the East, the Cavs had no problems with the Hawks sweeping another series and breaking the NBA record for three-pointers made in Game 2, with 25 makes from deep. On the other hand, Toronto and Miami played an extremely competitive series that went to Game 7. But in the deciding game, Kyle Lowry played one of the best games of his career, finishing with 35 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists, and 4 steals to lead the Raptors to the conference finals. And even though the world expected the Raptors to fold against the Cavaliers, especially after the first 2 games ended in a blowout, the Canadian team showed their teeth, tying the series with 2 wins at home. Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan played at an extremely high level, both scoring over 30 in Game 4. But the unsung hero was the Raptors' backup center Bismack Biyombo, who grabbed a career-high 26 rebounds in Game 3 and 14 in Game 4, perfectly replacing Jonas Valanciunas, who got hurt in the second round. In Game 5, the Raptors couldn't buy a bucket, scoring just 78 points in another blowout. And in Game 6, despite 35 points from Lowry and 20 from DeRozan, Toronto couldn't deal with the Cavs' Big Three, who scored 83 points combined, pushing the Cavs to their 3rd NBA Finals. However, the Western Conference Finals proved to be much more even, more dramatic, and more controversial. Despite an awful shooting night from Durant and Westbrook, OKC stole Game 1 in Oakland, behind the great play of their role players who shot a combined 58% from the field, compared to just 33% for Russ and KD. The Warriors bounced back in Game 2, dominantly winning by 27, with Draymond Green posting 10 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists, and 1 knee to Steve Adams' groin. When the series relocated to OKC, Westbrook and Durant were unstoppable, combining for 63 points, with 4 other Thunder players scoring in double figures. OKC won 133-105, but the game won't be remembered for the score. Instead, for another Draymond kick to Adams' family jewels. Green tried to justify his actions by saying that his leg was flailing naturally and that it was a pure basketball motion.
I brought the ball over, I got fouled this way, my body went that way, and he got up.
But nobody was buying it, and the NBA issued him a $25,000 fine, along with a flagrant foul too, which put him in jeopardy of getting suspended if he got another flagrant during the postseason. And Game 4 was the carbon copy of Game 3. Russ and KD combined for 62 points, 4 other Thunder players scored in double figures, in another blowout victory for OKC. The greatest season of all time was turning into a disaster for the Warriors, who were on the brink of elimination for the first time in 2 years. But in Game 5, the Dubs finally snapped out of their funk, winning 120-111, extending the series. However, in Game 6, OKC had a golden opportunity to clinch the NBA Finals at home, and it looked like they were going to do it, leading by 8 points after the first 3 quarters. In the fourth, seemingly every time the Thunder scored, Klay Thompson hit a 3 to keep the Warriors in the game. Klay made 5 threes in the final period, and 11 overall, which was a new NBA playoff record. And even though the Thunder still had a chance to win the game, a couple of late turnovers by Westbrook cost them, and the Warriors escaped with a victory, behind a monster 41 points from Thompson and 31 from Curry. In Game 7, the Thunder held a lead at the half, but a disastrous third quarter, which Golden State won 29-12, put the game away, and the Warriors ultimately won 96-88, with Steph erupting for 36 points to lead the Dubs to another NBA Finals. Golden State became just the 10th team in NBA history to come back and win a playoff series after facing a 3-1 deficit. In a repeat of the 2015 Finals, Game 1 was competitive through the first 3 quarters, but then an unexpected hero showed up for the Warriors and put the game away. It was Sean Livingston, the Warriors' backup point guard, leading all Dubs players in scoring with a playoff career-high 20 points, including 10 in the fourth quarter. Golden State won by 15, once again showcasing their catchphrase, strength in numbers, as 7 of their players scored in double digits. This loss was especially demoralizing for Cleveland because they limited the Splash Brothers to just 20 combined points on 8 for 27 shooting, and they still lost by 15. In Game 2, the Cavs hung on in the first quarter, but then got completely wiped out. In the next 3 quarters, the Warriors demolished Cleveland, winning 110-77. It was the 7th biggest margin of victory in NBA Finals history, and once again, neither Splash Brothers scored 20 points. Instead, it was Draymond Green with a hot shooting hand, hitting 5 of his 8 three-pointers for a 28-point performance. But when the series got to Cleveland for Game 3, it was the Cavaliers who punched the Warriors in the mouth early, with Kyrie Irving scoring as much as the entire Golden State team in the first quarter. The Warriors cut the 17-point deficit to just 8 at halftime, but the Cavs stepped on the gas in the second half, ultimately winning by 30 points, despite missing Kevin Love, who was out of the game due to a concussion he suffered in Game 2.
At the start of that second half, he experienced dizziness and was taken to the locker room in order to be further evaluated. Now, after that examination, Love has been placed in the NBA's concussion protocol.
Game 4 was the closest game of the series up to that point, as Golden State held just a 1-point lead going into the fourth quarter. It looked like the game could swing either way, but that's when the greatest shooter of all time finally caught his stride. Steph's shooting was below par in the first 3 games, as he failed to crack 20 points all series, the same as his splash brother Klay. But in the fourth quarter of Game 4, Curry took over, scoring 13 of Golden State's 29 points, en route to a 38-point night, with the Warriors winning by 11. The Warriors made 17 three-pointers, then an NBA record for a single finals game, and the first time in the finals that a team made more threes than twos. However, that was all soon forgotten because of Draymond Green and his habit of hitting players in the nuts. With less than 3 minutes to play in the game, and with his Warriors up by 10, Green committed the costliest mistake of his career. The contact with LeBron's gentleman's area earned Draymond his 4th flagrant foul in the postseason, which was an automatic 1-game suspension. But even though they would play without their best defensive player, Golden State still had a 3-1 lead, winning all the games by double digits. It felt that the rest of the series was just a formality, because in the history of the NBA Finals, 32 teams had fallen to a 3-1 deficit and all 32 lost. After Game 4, when asked about the incident between Draymond and LeBron, Klay Thompson made the costliest quote of his career.
I mean, guys talk trash in this league all the time. You know, I'm just kind of shocked some guys take it so personal. I don't know how the man feels, but obviously people have feelings and people's feelings get hurt, even if they're called a bad word. I guess his feelings just got hurt.
And when he heard that, LeBron took the high road, but deep inside, he was livid.
What did you say Klay said?
Klay said, I guess he just got his feelings hurt.
Despite the deep hole that his team was in, the King had the ultimate belief in himself, and Klay's comments unleashed LeBron's killer instinct. Even though the rest of the world believes the Cavs were toast, LeBron knew that they were going to make a comeback.
And that's when Bron just said, he looked around and goes, you know what, guys? We're going to win tomorrow night. We're going to have a huge game. It's going to be tough. It's going to come down to the last few minutes. We're not losing at home. Game 7, anything can happen.
And when Game 5 started, James was on an absolute tear, scoring 25 points in the first half, while Kyrie Irving had 18. But despite the absence of Draymond, the Warriors weren't going anywhere. And largely due to Klay Thompson's 26 points, the game was dead even at halftime. But early in the third, a disaster struck for the Warriors. Andrew Bogut, their best rebounder and interior defender, hurt his knee, and he was out for the series. Without Draymond and Bogut, the Warriors had a big hole under the basket that nobody on their team could fill. LeBron and Irving finished with 41 points each, becoming the first pair of teammates to score 40 in a finals game. The Cavaliers won Game 5, 112-97, and the Cavs coach, Ty Lue, was extremely confident they'd be coming back to Oakland for Game 7.
We won Game 5, we're in the locker room, and I had everybody in the locker room give me $200. And I actually got the video on my phone, and I put it in the ceiling and said, we're coming back for Game 7 and get our money.
And when the series returned to Cleveland for Game 6, LeBron had another performance for the ages. The King had complete control on both ends of the floor, and the Cavs blew the Warriors out from the jump, winning the first quarter by 20. And Cleveland maintained that lead up until the end of the game. Whenever the Warriors came close, LeBron was there to stop them, and the Cavs won 115-101. James finished the game with 41 points, including 18 straight points from the end of the third quarter to the 7-minute mark of the fourth. LeBron also had 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, and 3 blocks, while only committing 1 turnover in one of the best all-around games ever. Game 6 of the finals was also memorable because ESPN invited TNT's Craig Sager to do sideline interviews, which was the first time he ever worked in the NBA Finals, and sadly, the last game he ever appeared on before his death later that year. But after such a legendary season, in the end, it all came down to Game 7. Only the 4th time it happened in the NBA Finals since 1994. But of all the Game 7s, this one was arguably the most legendary and one of the biggest nail-biters ever. The two teams exchanged the lead 20 times with 11 ties, and with 4 minutes and 40 seconds left, the score was tied at 89. For the next 3 minutes, neither team could buy a bucket, as everyone was completely exhausted. But then, it looked like the Warriors would break the tie, as Andre Iguodala led on the 2-on-1 fast break. What followed next was the greatest chase-down block in the history of basketball.
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup! Oh, blocked by James! LeBron James with the rejection!
With 1:09 to play and the score still tied, the Cavs called a timeout. As Ty Lue gathered the team, James emphatically pointed to Irving, with the full belief in his running mates scoring in isolation. The Cavs then ran a screen with J.R. Smith, forcing Curry to guard Kyrie.
Irving and Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good! Kyrie Irving from downtown!
Despite having a three-point advantage with 53 seconds to go, it was still a one-possession game. The Warriors used the same tactic as the Cavs did moments earlier, hunting Kevin Love in the pick and roll, forcing him to guard Steph on the perimeter. Love was the Warriors' preferred target, and throughout the 30 minutes he played in Game 7, the Warriors scored 28 points with Love as the primary defender, and the Dubs scored more than 30% of their points over him. However, with the clock winding down, Love moved his feet like he never moved them before, contesting Curry's shot as well as he could, forcing a missed three-pointer from Steph. With their final possession, the Cavs needed a bucket to put the game away, and Kyrie drove the ball hard right, passed to cutting LeBron, who soared for a dunk, only to be fouled hard by Draymond. James landed on the floor and grimaced in pain, but the game still wasn't out of reach, and he needed to make at least one free throw. LeBron missed the first, but made the second, with 10 seconds left on the clock. After a timeout, Steph had another three-point attempt to cut the lead to 1, but his shot missed the target, and the Cavs could finally celebrate. After 52 long and painful years, the city of Cleveland finally won the championship, which was echoed by one of the most legendary shoutouts ever.
Cleveland! This is for you!
In Game 7, James led all Cavaliers with 27 points and became only the third player in NBA history to record a triple-double in an NBA Finals Game 7 by adding 11 assists and 11 rebounds. With 29.7 points, 11.3 rebounds, 8.9 assists, 2.6 steals, and 2.3 blocks per game, LeBron also became the first player ever to lead both teams in all 5 major statistical categories in any playoff series, and he deservingly won the Finals MVP. The Cavaliers became the first team in NBA history to come back from a 3-1 series deficit to win the NBA Finals, as well as the first road team to win a Finals Game 7 since the 1978 Washington Bullets. Game 7 of the 2016 Finals was the most watched game in NBA Finals history. And with plenty of lead changes and some of the most legendary plays ever, it's safe to say it was the best Finals game of all time. The 2016 season was truly a crossroads season, with the league fully embracing the three-pointer and saying farewell to some of the last remaining players from the 90s, while welcoming some of the future superstars like Giannis and Jokic. Even if you look at the media landscape, 2016 was a breakthrough year between the old-school reporting and modern technology. Inside the NBA on TNT was as funny as ever. ESPN had its powerhouse First Take, as well as some other successful shows, like The Jump, hosted by Rachel Nichols. First NBA podcasts also started to emerge, most notably Bill Simmons' podcast on The Ringer. Zach Lowe launched The Lowe Post, while Jalen Rose became one of the first NBA players with his own podcast, Jalen and Jacoby. NBA memes and Twitter also became a part of everyday life in the NBA, and Bleacher Report's Game of Zones was insanely popular, bringing a humorous view of the NBA through animation. So when you count the rise in media outlets, the greatness of the finals, the thriller of the Western Conference Finals, the Warriors and Curry's historic season, Kobe's legendary farewell, the amazing dunk contest, and plenty of other great moments, the 2016 NBA season was truly something special and is probably the greatest NBA season of all time. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, we have another one for you right here.